Well, good morning. Welcome to Lakeshore Community Church. It's good to see you all here today. How's everyone doing? Very good. Very good. Glad that you're with us today. Glad you took the time to be here. If you can hear my voice and you're in the atrium right now, that is your cue to get on in because we are starting. If you're watching online, you're already with us here. We want to welcome you too. Glad that you are here. Hope you guys have had a good weekend enjoying the weather, the time out there. We're going to be looking this morning in the book of James chapter 5. It's a very challenging passage, so hold on tight. It's going to challenge you. It's going to challenge some assumptions and rock some things, it's all good. It's good when we look at God's word in that way. One of the things that's going to challenge us to do is to really question how we're using our wealth. We use that word wealth. You know, we're in America. The reality is we are materially wealthy. You may not feel like it. You might compare yourself to somebody else, somewhere else in town or whatever, and you're like, I don't feel wealthy. You are wealthy. If you drove a car to church today, you're wealthy financially, right? If you have more than 5 shirts in your closet, financially, you're wealthy right now, right? If you earned more than $25 this week, you're wealthy financially. All right, and so we need to think through some of that. We're going to be challenged by that today. My daughter, as an example, she's 7 years old. She went to Walmart with Shanna the other day, and her grandma. They went to Walmart. She wanted to buy silly string, so she had just enough money for like 2 cans of silly string. She knew how much it was. She just for whatever reason, she just wanted to get it. So she was on the way there, and on the way into the store, there was somebody standing on the sidewalk asking for donations for homeless vets. And she heard the word homeless, and it just struck her. Like, she's got a real heart for people that don't have a place to call home. And so it's really cool. But she had that decision. She had to make a decision in that moment. And the very fact that a 7-year-old girl can actually decide what to do with money, actually has a decision, means she's probably wealthy, right? We've got some decisions to make as well. And we're going to be challenged with them. I'm glad that you're here for that. We're going to be doing some singing before we get into the message. We're led this morning by Pastor Brian, by Delissa, by Sarah, and by Heather. So we're really glad that we get to sing together and worship a God who loves us in spite of our affluence, in spite of our wealth. He's so patient with us. He's so kind with us. He loves us so deeply, and he continues to pace through our struggles with us. Before we do some singing, though, why don't you go ahead and stand up, greet the person next to you, say good morning, and then we'll get into things.
Ever our heart will seek Jesus in everything. right, church, let's sing this out together. And now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. Say, we will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus, as the heavens cry, let the earth respond. All creation shouts with a voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. Yeah, we will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Yeah. Shout this out, that he shall reign forever. Oh, he shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord, and he has overcome. Say, he shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord, and he has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. The risen one has overcome. Yes, he has. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. The risen one has overcome. Yeah. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one has overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave, for the risen one has overcome. Yeah.
Amen. Do you believe that this morning? In John chapter 16, Jesus was speaking to his disciples, and he was talking to them and preparing them for what was about to come with his crucifixion, his burial, and his resurrection. And at the end of that chapter, Jesus said to them, I tell you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world, you will have trials. He didn't say maybe. He didn't say, it's possible. He said, in this world, you will have trials. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. He has overcome the world. He has overcome sin, and he has overcome death. And because of that, we can know and we can have hope in the reality that this is not all that there is. See, the Bible also tells us that we can cast our anxieties on him because he cares for us. It also says that he will be our strength when we are weak. It says that we don't have to fear because he's walking side by side with us. But if I'm honest, there are days, there are weeks, there are seasons, projects, or anything that I take on where I don't ask God for guidance. There are some weeks that I get to Wednesday or Thursday and I'm looking up and I'm going, God, why is my week going so terribly? My kids aren't listening. I'm frustrated with my husband. Dinner is all over the floor. My dog clearly hates me. And I look at God and I'm like, God, why is this happening? I'm so stressed. I'm so frustrated and I'm so burdened. And you know what I hear? This is the first time you said anything to me. Because I don't go to him. And he is a gentleman, and he will wait patiently for us to reach out to him. Because while I have made Jesus Christ the King of my heart, I am not necessarily making him the king of my life on a daily, regular basis. So that is one thing that I really, really want to challenge each of you with. As we sing this next song, ultimately, the first and foremost, most important thing is to make sure that you have made Jesus Christ the King of your life. So as we sing this song, think about, have I done that yet? And if the answer is yes, then move on to the next question. How? How can I make him the king of my life daily so that he can be that shelter and that refuge that he so desires to be for me, that I so desperately need? So let's sing this together. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good. Oh
Father, we thank you so much that you are good, that we can stand here as one church and we can proclaim to you what you already know about yourself, that you are good, and we worship you this morning. For those of us, Lord, who are wondering, are you good? We're asking that question, Lord. I pray that you would show yourself to us. You'd remove the blinders so that we could see you as you are. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Go ahead and have a seat. Good morning. Welcome to Lakeshore. My name is Corey. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at the church. I want to orient you to a few things for our service that we have today. I'm so glad that you're here, that you are with us, that you chose to spend your morning with us. If you're watching online, again, we're so glad that you are with us and joining us today. If you're new around here, I want to highlight a couple things for you. There's a Connect card that looks like this in the seat back in front of you. If you're watching online, you can find a link to it there as well. We want to encourage you, take a second now and fill this out. For us, this is a great tool that we use to communicate with you personally, to welcome you to the church, to orient you to a few things that we think you'll find helpful. If you've been coming for a few weeks and you really want to get connected, we have a space just for you. It's called Get Connected right out there. We would encourage you to stop by, and we'll point you kind of in the right direction of what would make sense for you right now as you try to get connected. Another thing, too, is if you have kids, we want to make sure that you know we have classes for kids, babies all the way through 5th grade. They meet every Sunday morning during the 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock services. You can always bring your kids over there. And if your kids are having a hard time kind of separating or being in there by themselves, you're always, as a parent, welcome to be in there with the kids as much as you need to with that. We do want to have our auditorium be a distraction-free environment. So if your kids are having one of those days where they're just loud or they're just moving around, you know what that's like. I know my kids are, they're like that a lot. So sometimes we just have to get up and leave. We want to encourage you to do that. You can go out into the atrium. You can view the service out there. They can be crazy and loud, run around, get energy out there, and it's totally okay with that. We have a big weekend coming up. Next Sunday is Father's Day weekend. We have Chad and Kathy Robichaux coming back, so we're really excited about that. They actually put a video together just for us, so go ahead and watch this.
Hi, my name is Chad Robichaux, and it's my wife Kathy, and we're with the Mighty Oaks Foundation. As a former Force Reconnaissance Marine and Afghanistan veteran, my family faced some of the same things that many military warriors face today. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, I faced a personal battle with suicide, and my family faced a devastating divorce. However, on the other side of that, my family found hope, we found restoration, and we found a purpose moving forward through a relationship with Jesus Christ. Since then, we shared that purpose moving forward with thousands of other military warriors and families at Mighty Oaks Foundation.
And we would like to share that with you. Join us this Father's Day weekend, June 16th, for the Restore Marriage Workshop. To sign up, you could go to lakeshorechurch.org/restore.
And also, join us on Sunday, the 17th, where Kathy and I will be on stage with Pastor Vince, sharing our story and answering questions. We look forward to being in Rochester. We've made so many friends there over the year, and look forward to making many more. God bless you, and see you there.
It's going to be a great time. We really want to encourage you to invite people to this. PTSD is a real thing. And battling with suicide, it's a real thing. We know that, right? We're reminded of that even this week. And so if you're struggling with that, you're not crazy, you're not alone. If you know somebody, you work with somebody, someone in your family is struggling, they're not alone. We actually believe that God can speak into this and bring hope. And so we're really excited for Chad and Kathy being back here. Make sure you're here. But also for the marriage seminar on Saturday. If you haven't signed up for that, but you plan to come, please sign up, register today. You can go do that right now before you even leave the church building today. You can do that on our website. You can do that. You can scan the code that's in your program as well. We do have childcare for that as well. So if you have kids, bring them along with you, but sign them in and register them so you reserve your spot and make sure that's set for you for this coming weekend. Again, we're in the middle of our current series in the book of James. We're really excited that you're here with that. We're going to be talking about using our wealth wisely. And we put a video camera in front of a few kids because we knew they would be honest with us. We gave them a $5 bill, and we simply asked them, what would you do with that?
What would you do with it?
Buy something with it. A dollhouse for my sissy. I want to take my roller toaster and buy it. I'm going to keep it until I need it. I'd give it to someone who needed the money. Play with it.
You're going to play with it?
Buy a toy.
What toy?
A slime kit. I'm gonna put it in my cranberry. Ooh, $20.
What are you going to do with that?
Put it on my dresser.
Are you going to save it?
Yeah.
For what?
For church.
For church?
In school.
Usually when I get money, I usually save it up until it's like somebody's birthday or Christmas, and then I'll usually like give it as a gift or something. I do that every year.
What would you do with that?
I would probably donate it.
To?
Probably half to here and then half to my school.
What are you going to do with that?
I might give it to charity or something.
Do you have a particular charity that you would give it to?
Probably I'll feed my starving children to pay for food and stuff.
What are you going to do with that?
I am just giving this to Jesus
And why are you going to give that to Jesus?
because Jesus saves our lives and take away our sins that we did, and we always say sorry.
That's pretty awesome, isn't it? It's so fun to know that your children are in outstanding care in our Lakeshore Kids program, also on our Ignite student ministry, all the way up. We take care of them. I always tell people all the time, if you can endure me, your kids are in great shape. And so it's so fun to hear what they have to say. It's awesome and kind of verifies what Jesus says. We should have childlike faith out of the mouth of babes, things like this. It's really, really cool. So I ask you a question. What would you do if you got a little more than $5? But if you got $1,000 today, $10,000. What if you got What if you got $100,000 today? What would you do with it? Really? You know what I found? It's easier to answer that question piously when you don't have the money than when you do. How many know that's true? It is. So let's talk about how to use your wealth wisely. Take out your notes, open to James chapter 5, verses 1 to 6. We're continuing our series on the book of James, and I think it's really important that before I dig in, I want to settle two great myths that many people have that aren't really true when it comes to money and wealth. Here's the first myth. The first myth is that the Bible teaches that it's wrong to be wealthy. Now, this comes from a couple misinterpreted passages. One, when I was a brand new Christian, I misinterpreted, where Jesus says it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. And some of you are going, eye of the needle? Camel. It's impossible. But Jesus didn't say it's impossible, did he? He said it's easier. In other words, he leaves room. And whether it's because the eye of the needle was a literal gateway into a city that was just a little bigger than a camel when a camel lay down, and a camel could get through it if he took off all its possessions and belongings, and the camel got down on its legs like a can and weaseled through and worked his way through. That's a possible interpretation, though the eye of the needle has never been found archaeologically. Or second, Jesus is just flat out using rhetoric. He's using exaggeration for effect. He's saying it can happen, it's just very, very difficult. Another one is 1 Timothy 6:10, right? Where it says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Not money is evil, not love of money is evil. It's the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. There's another reason why I don't believe that not only the misinterpretation of it, but look at some of these people. I'll explain some of the background for those who aren't familiar with the Bible. There's a lot of godly people in the Bible who were rich. A man named Abraham, not Lincoln, but Abraham, who was a patriarch. He was the father of all Arabs, the father of all Jews. Spiritually speaking, the New Testament says he's the spiritual father of everybody who's a Christian. And Abraham was a millionaire by today's standards. Another man named Job. Remember, you hear the patience of Job, you hear the suffering of Job, you've heard all those expressions. The Bible says Job was the richest man in his day. David and Solomon. David was a millionaire, one of the richest men of his time, second king of Israel. His son, third king, Solomon, was so rich, Ecclesiastes says he was so rich that silver didn't have value in his day. Silver's a good investment. And it's like, he's so rich, it's like, oh, silver. Be nice to have that. Another man named Barnabas, what a name he was given, son of encouragement. Boy, he was an encouragement. Barnabas was rich. Well, the Bible doesn't necessarily say a lot about it, but we know from history and all that Barnabas gave tons of money to the church. Tons of money to the church. Rich. And Jesus was buried in an incredible tomb. You know, a rock-hewn tomb was not common. It was a very expensive tomb. You know where he got that? He got that from a man named Joseph of Arimathea, a very rich man. So God doesn't oppose wealth. He only opposes its misuse and abuse. Second myth, I think it's important before we dig in, is the myth that says this, that we're not rich. It's only the people on the east side. I know what you're thinking. It's only people in Pittsford, right? I know you're thinking it. So, or near Pittsford, or Brighton, or something like that, Ambassador Drive, or whatever, you know. But we're all rich by the world standards. The poorest person in America would, in many countries, be middle class. And the middle class in America would likely be the upper 10% in the world. You know that? Middle class in America is in the upper 10 to 15% of our world's wealth. Just having a car makes you wealthy, let alone if you have two or more. Having more than a few sets of clothes makes you wealthy. And if I see you at Kohl's, that's it. I know you're wealthy. You're also smart because you get the clearance deal like I do. It all makes us pretty wealthy, and it also makes James chapter 5, verses 1 to 6, extremely relevant and pertinent to us. Because you read what he's going to say, you who are rich, and you go, I'm out. No, you're in. You're in. You're all in today. And you're not going to like it. You're going to love it. And if you get mad at anybody, don't get mad at me. Get mad at James. That's been my story throughout the whole series. And he starts off with this is not how to win friends and influence people, but this is how you throw down and get really, really clear. Top of your notes, James 5:1. James says, now listen, you rich people. That's us. Weep and wail because of the misery that's coming upon you. So that means we should all start crying. Wah! You know, it's not what James is necessarily saying, because remember, James made a particular statement at a particular time to a particular group of people. This is why you cannot get the Bible, get a verse, and rip it out of context and start saying stuff about it. People do this. They start ripping verses out of context and say, God always wants you healed, ripping verses out of context, just speak it into existence, all this fabricated fairy tale, made in America religion stuff, because you rip stuff out of context. So it's a particular statement to a particular people at a particular time, but there are warnings, and my job is to build a bridge between the particular situation then and now. Now I want to say this. This is a general truth. At Lakeshore, everything we do is based on the Bible. Now, if you've been to other churches or you watch Christian television, and that's a hazard right there, because sometimes the programs on Christian television are only half right. They are on television, right? So, but if you ever heard a good message, you go, why was that a good message? Can I tell you why it was a good message? Because what you have is you have the timeless truth of the Bible, and then you have needs. The best messages build a strong bridge between the timeless truth of the Bible and your current need. All Bible and no need, it's a lecture. All need, no Bible, you're a lib. You're a flaming liberal who doesn't believe in any truth. You have to start here, but you can't end here. You start in the Bible and you end with people's lives. And the best message, when you say that's a good message, you know why you said it? Because the pastor did a good job to build the bridge between the timeless truth of the Bible and your real need. That was free. That's just how we've tried to operate. So I hope that helps. Not going anywhere without the Bible. Any church that doesn't regularly encourage you to read the Bible is not the church you should attend. Now, a little bit of background's in order about this weeping and wailing stuff. In the New Testament times, there really wasn't a middle class. There really wasn't. You know, a politician says today what? What do they always appeal to when it comes to financial aid? We're going to help the what? The middle class. We're going to help the lower class move into the middle class, and we're going to help the rich people. We're going to get them. We're going to get them. And we're going to get them down to middle class. But you know, there's always going to be different strata of people, and you cannot play governmental Robin Hood. It doesn't work. It's called socialism and communism. It doesn't work. Communism and socialism's great until you run out of somebody else's money. It's an awesome system until then. So they're either very poor, there are haves and have-nots, and there aren't very many in the middle. And the system back then allowed the rich to get even richer and the poor to stay poor. It was a system, the Roman Empire and the system associated. The rich kept getting richer and the poor stayed poor. And the fact that there were so many rich people that had a tendency to use and manipulate the poor people, it led to divisions even in the church. Remember in James chapter 2, 1-7, earlier in this series, when it says, if a person comes in all dressed up and rich, and they go, hey, oh, it's so great to have you here. Sit next to the offering. I mean, sit here in this beautiful seat. And then the poor person, yeah, you could sit on the floor in the back. It was a mistreatment based on wealth, so James warned about it earlier. But keep all this in mind. It's essential if you really want to grasp this passage, because James is going to bring some of the strongest rebukes, and we know he's not afraid to do that in this text. Now, why does James bring negative rebuke? Why is he so strong on this subject? You know why? Because God is always protecting and defending the oppressed. Jesus' first sermon, I came to set the captives free. Jesus' first sermon, Luke chapter 4. God loves the oppressed. And that's quadrillion and one reason. And there are infinite number of reasons to love God. Why? One of the many reasons I love Jesus Christ and I love God is because God cares about people who don't care about. Full disclosure. I just got, somebody came up to me and said, I need to talk to you. This guy needs to talk to you, and he seems upset. And somebody who used to attend our church, I did a tragic funeral. They lost a son tragically, just lost his daughter tragically here 15 years later. And I feel it's my job to comfort the hurting. That's my job. And he hasn't been to our church, maybe a little while after it. I'm doing the funeral because you have to do it. I want to be like God. And I'm not saying that to say, listen to me. I'm just saying that's what can happen, and that's why we love God so much. So what I want to do is I want to talk about 4 common misuses of wealth. 4 common abuses are identified by James, and I'm going to have to build this bridge again, the bridge between the truth of God, what James is saying, and where we're at. So I'm going to explain what James is saying, then I'm going to build a bridge to where we're at, and hopefully you'll say, good bridge. That's my hope. First is what I call an accumulation issue, and that's this. We hoard it. First major misuse of wealth. God says money is not to be stockpiled for the sake of having it. He wants us to put our money into circulation. Look at verses 2-3. He says 3 things. Your wealth has rotted. Moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Notice the trend of all 3. Their corrosion will testify against you. Not even people will, not even the objects. Their corrosion is a testimony. It's personification, adding a personal virtue to something that's not a person, but a thing. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. It almost seems like he's speaking of judgment day. And then he says, you have piled up riches in these last days. By the way, 2,000 years ago, James says we're living in the last days. Today, we're living in the last of the last days. We don't know that. But 2,000 years ago, James thought the Lord could come back. But I want you to circle up a phrase, piled up. Circle that. Because I want to be very, very clear, especially when it's a little bit later. This is not condemning savings. This is condemning hoardings. There are less and less people who lived through the Great Depression. You remember in October 29, we had the great stock market crash, less than 100 years ago. And between October 1929 into the mid-30s, we had a Great Depression. It was one of the worst economic times, if not the worst economic time in the history of our country. I mean, it was worse economically at the beginning of our country because there was like nothing. You had to make your own. And it paralleled that. By the way, it could happen again. But if you know people that lived through that, so think about it, they were, say, born in the early 20s, so they're starting to be 95 and such. They lived through that. How do they think about money? Very differently. They're talking about money and mattresses, shoe boxes. You know, how many have ever known anybody that's gone through the Great Depression? That's how they think, that you can't have enough. And you can't really blame them. But while savings is good, a fear of losing it and then over-saving it to compensate for your fear of losing it, making savings an end to itself, I'm just going to tell you the truth. If you make savings the end of itself, you are living in sin. It's sinful. James says so. Accumulation should not be the goal of your life. He who dies with the most toys still dies. James addressed 3 of the most common. Stockpiling food and crops. Remember, I'll build bigger barns, that parable Jesus told. I'll build bigger barns so I can keep hoarding. Collecting clothes. I feel convicted. If you walked in our walk-in closet, I looked at it about a month ago. I said, I actually have more clothes than my wife. I'll never admit that again. Third thing, Kohl's is the problem. Third thing is gathering precious metals and jewels. Notice all 3 do the same thing. They fade. They fade. They're temporary. Here's the point. What we over-accumulate will eventually deteriorate. What we over-accumulate will eventually deteriorate. I wish we'd all remember that. God sees how people do it today, and it's misuse. You know, we hear all these stories of Enron and all these people, you know, these executives that get these, we call them gold, even names for them, golden parachutes. They get out and get paid. There's a story in the paper, a former, I'm not going to say the name and all the particulars. I know the individual. He was a friend, and I know a lot more about the individual, which I am not going to talk to you about today, but I'm not going to mention the name of the individual. But if you saw the paper recently, there's an individual who used to be a superintendent of Greece Central School District. He's now in another school district. And he's causing some tensions over there, and there's this. But here's the thing I know. Like, it's not for us anymore, but if you live in the town of Greece and you pay Greece school taxes, guess what you're paying? You're paying the health care, and I'm sure it's a Cadillac plan, for this individual for the rest of his life. Absolutely. Congratulations. How would you like to be the person that negotiated that deal? The point is, we can hoard too when we're so focused on what we have or what we want over what we can give away. Again, what we over-accumulate will eventually deteriorate. Second, it's what I call an appropriation issue. That is, we steal it. God's not only concerned with what we have, He's just as concerned about how we got it. Look at verse 4. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workmen who mowed your fields are crying out against you. There it is, personification. Now the money is speaking. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord all-powerful. And I will tell you this, injustice always reaches the ears of God. He always sees it. He always sees your sin, always sees my sin, always sees your injustice, always sees my injustice. He sees it all. And whenever we use money in dishonest ways, God just says it's stealing. Now, in those days, workmen were hired for various jobs that became available. You remember this if you were here in our church in the spring, winter-spring time frame. When we talked about Jesus, Jesus said what? We did a message from Matthew 20, I believe it was, where Jesus would go in the marketplace and hire workers at different times of the day. Remember that? That's where it was very common. You'd go and hire workers for the day. Now, these workers were paid at the end of each day for their work, not like, we get paid here at our church every other week. Many of you do that. Some people, I guess they get paid monthly. That would seem like a long time, but it's either, most people are every week or every other week. Back then, they got paid every day. Every day. And when they were not paid, they had no recourse. They couldn't go, well, the contract says. No contract. The unions, there's no unions, no labor laws. It was the Roman government. And the landowner would not pay, and they'd simply say, well, I didn't like your work today. Of course, they told you at the end of the shift, conveniently. But while these workmen had no human recourse to defend them, God sought, heard the cry of the workmen, and heard the cry of their unpaid wages, the text says. And here's the thing, we go, that's awful. But you know, we can steal today too. We do it too. The way we do taxes. I mean, let's just be honest. Like for me, I have gobs of receipts. I can do, I can write this. And here's the thing, there's always, I'm just being honest, there's always 2 or 3 receipts. I'm like, And man, I tell you, it's nuclear war. But I always tend to go, if I'm not sure, I put it in the not used pile. Here's another one. You sell a car, but you hid an important detail on purpose. Wasting time at work. Well, I'm witnessing. Witness at the break or lunch or something like this. Overcharging a customer. These are appropriation of money issues. It's stealing. Here's a third. Third issue is what I call an allocation issues. We waste it. The way we spend money is important to God, and it's important to us. James 5:5. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. It's like a cow. You just give it grass and grain. You don't let it move so that it weighs more, and you sell it, and there's a bigger, juicier steaks. Fish! I don't know. Do you chop his head off? What do you do to one of them? I think you cut his head off. I don't know what you... If any of you could help me, let me know. I don't think we have any cattle farmers here, apparently, but they would just kill it. And God says, just like that, you fatten the cow for the day of slaughter. That's what's happening when you live in luxury. It's an allocation issue. It's a waste issue. Now, this is a tension. Honestly, I felt very convicted about this one because I go, when does nice become luxury? I mean, if a commercial says, buy our luxury vehicle, like, is that crossing the line of sin? I don't know. I have a nice house. I bought the first new car of my life a year ago. Like, is that no good? I don't know. There's an easy answer to that. One of the great temptations of living in our great, great country is that we love to spend money on ourselves. Every commercial will tell you why you must spend it on yourself. Because you won't smell so good, look so good, feel so good, be happy unless you buy this. I have a friend who helped our church, God rest his soul, Ivan French, one of the unsung heroes. We have many unsung heroes of the church. There's another one back there, did $1 million of printing for free. Ivan French did so much advertising for us for free. He had an advertising practice, sold it for $1 million, made investments, tried to live off 10% every year so he could preserve his capital, smart. And he would say, Vince, you pay people a lot of good money to come up with a way to get in your head and tell you why you need something put on you. And here's what I found. The more we make, the easier it is to spend. Why not? I can afford it. Affording something doesn't mean you should buy it. I can afford it. That is not an implicit reason to buy something. You can be wasteful. See, how you allocate your money is a statement of your values. Don't tell me what your values are. I just want to see your debit card, credit card, checkbook. Just let me take a look. I'll tell you exactly I know exactly what you value. You go, what do I value? Just look at your last 3 months of spending. It's right there. Nobody can't argue with that. Here's the fourth. Application issues. We abuse it. This is how we use the influence of money. Money gives us more than just buying ability. Do you know that? Money also gives you influence ability. Do you know that? Money is influence. There's no doubt about that. James 5:6. You have condemned and killed good men. In other words, they've used influence to kill people. Now, whether we don't know exactly how they condemned or killed good men. Was it literally? Is it figuratively? Did they kill them to try to avoid paying them? Were they indirectly responsible for their death by not paying their wages and them starving? I mean, we don't know exactly, but somehow, either metaphorically or literally, actively or passively, good people died who had no power to defend themselves against you. Richard Foster wrote a very famous book some time ago called Money, Sex, and Power. And he said this. He said, money gives you three things. It gives you influence. People will listen to you more when you have money. It's a fact. It's a fact. Second, power. When you have money, you can get away with more. It's a fact. That's why some of the prison reform stuff for the less fortunate, they don't have access to the same legal as what others do. And I don't know what the answer is, but there's a point there. And then third, authority. You know, when you have money, you can boss people over. It can be used for good or for bad. James points out the negative abuse in verse 6. Evidently, the rich were buying off judges to get their way over people. That seems to be what many commentators say. And we can do the same thing. Now, that's heavy stuff, isn't it? And I don't think James is telling us this necessarily to guilt us. Because I don't think guilt does anything. Because, you know, and it's another little kind of principle, like I talked about the bridge between the Bible and people's lives, and that's my goal. I'll tell you another truth. I don't believe in guilt motivation. It doesn't work. Here's what I know about guilt motivation. Guilt motivation lasts about as long as the guilt does. I can guilt you for about a week, and then it doesn't last. I don't believe in guilt motivation. The Bible doesn't either. The Bible believes in grace motivation. You don't have to do it, but if you do, good things will happen. Because guilt motivation doesn't last. Grace motivation always lasts. So I don't think that's his goal. I think the goal of James is to remind us that there's a better way. And as James is prone to do, he just leaves it. He leaves the negative out there and lets it hang like a bad aroma in a room. And I won't qualify what aroma. But he does it to get us to think about it. But thankfully, the rest of the Bible gives us great, great help. And I want to give you 4 constructive use of wealth. And I want to give you the big principle right up front. What's James' main point? What's the Bible's main point about affluence and being wealthy? It's right there in your notes. The smart person will understand the Bible says, use your financial affluence for positive influence. Use your financial affluence for positive influence. Your money can be influential. The question is for good or for bad. Our money can influence our children, right? The right way or the wrong way. Our money can influence our friends. We can show them God's love by the way we use money. Or we can show them how great we are. And money can influence our world, right? We could advance the message of Jesus Christ so everybody in the world hears it, because it's going to happen. Matthew 24 says everybody's going to hear about Jesus Christ. The question is, will we be a part or not? Or will we simply confirm the world's suspicions that Christians, when it comes to money, Christians don't live very much differently than people who don't even believe in God? And there are some Christians that sicken me the way they live financially. They always got money for a pool to be a witnessing tool. They never have money for God. Funny coincidence. Do you ever think of your money that way? James is saying, use your wealth wisely by being a positive influence for Jesus Christ, for God, in the lives of other people. That's what he's saying. He does it through the negative, but now we're going to look at the positive. And I want to correct every one of the 4 misuses with 4 proper uses. I changed the order a little bit because I wanted to put the misuse. So the first positive use is the second misuse. The second is the first, then it'll follow. Here's the first. Earn it honestly. You want to use your money right? Earn it honestly. This corrects the issue of appropriation or stealing it. It always starts with what we earn and how we earn it. God wants us to earn money honestly. Look at Proverbs 13:11. Wealth from gambling quickly disappears. Wealth from hard work grows. This is what's called a contrastive proverb. The first half and the second half are in contrast with each other. The point, the more honestly you earn money, the more it will grow for you. Isn't that interesting? You go, well, money's money. Once I got it, I'll do what I want with it. But you know what's funny? The Bible's right. The way you get it determines how long you're going to keep it. It's just the way it works out. And the contrast is clear. Hard work, gambling. What's gambling? Gambling is a get-rich-quick scheme to avoid work. That's all it is. That's all gambling is. What's the problem with choosing gambling over hard work? Can I give you 3? Here's the first. When you win through gambling and not through hard work, you don't build your character. I understand that work is not the same before and after Adam and Eve fell into sin. But work in and of itself is not a curse. The fact that it's toilsome is a curse. You know that work is part of your self-esteem? Now, if you're a workaholic, it's your total self-esteem. But you know that work builds dignity and character in your life? By the way, don't ever say, do you work or stay at home, ladies? That's so insulting. Stay-at-home moms have a precious, important job, and every family's got a different situation. I'm not here to figure all that out. But when you work, you build dignity in yourself. When you're always welfaring, gravy training, mooching, those people have the worst self-esteem because they don't have any character being built. Second, gambling will cause problems in your life. You know, 7 times in the book of Proverbs it says, in effect, gambling doesn't pay. And yet, what does our state do? Gambling, gambling. Let's put another casino. And all it does is just, it's more financial heroin to the state and the federal government. And it wrecks more lives. So people got to go to gambling rehab. If they're addictive behavior, got to go to gambling rehab. I just do not support it. I love you if you buy a lottery ticket. There are worse sins in the world. The Bible has an unbelievably dim view of winning the lottery. In fact, people who won the lottery, there are some that say it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I know a lady at Sam's Club when that used to be open, she won it and she worked there for a while. But I'll tell you, a lot of people go, it wasn't that good. And other people said, worst thing that ever happened in my life. Because you know what ends up happening when you win the lottery? You have more family members. And that friend from high school just wants to talk. Just hear me out. You know where I'm going with that. Easy come, easy go. Make it quick, lose it quick. Now there's another verse there, Proverbs 11:16. I looked at different translations. It's translated different ways. And you know what? I don't even like that translation. So just scratch it out and say, just a mistake. This is the first time in my history. I don't like it. The translation is bad. It sends the wrong message. The message isn't found in the Bible. I'm going to give you another verse. So scratch it out and say, Vince made a mistake. I just wanted to confirm that it does happen. Now, Proverbs 12:27, write that down. And it says this: if you are lazy, you'll never get a lot. You'll never get what you're after. But if you work hard, you'll get a fortune. So scratch that out and write Proverbs 12:26. Common question, real quick, is this: how much money can we make? Does the Bible say this? Thou shalt make $100,000 or 17 drachmas or some other, adjusted for inflation? The Bible doesn't have that. So how much can you make? Here's the answer. You can make as much as you want, as long as 4 things are in place. 4. Ready? Number 1. You can make as much as you want as long as it doesn't harm your health. Be wise enough not to wear yourself out by trying to get rich. Proverbs 23:4. Some people work themselves up. They go, I'm going to work as many hours as I have to if it kills me. And it does. You know, a lot of people, they're so driven by work. Many people within the first few years of retirement die. You know why? Because they're so driven by work. Their cortisone, all these little chemicals are going a certain way, and then they shut it down, and they think, 18 holes a day and dinner at Denny's every night is going to heal it, and then they get messed up. Put your health above your wealth, and you're smart. Have the wisdom to show restraint, the text says. Here's another one. You can make as much as you want as long as it doesn't harm your family. Proverbs 15:27. A greedy man brings trouble to his family, but he who hates bribes will live. We work so hard, and the American dream is basically this, and I believe in some of it, and I don't believe in others of it. I believe in this American dream, to have everybody own a home. I do believe. I don't necessarily believe in this. I want it financially better for my kids than it was for me. I don't know. I found that when finances were tight, I found people had a lot better character than what I'm seeing now. Can I be honest with you? That's what I think. That's just my opinion. And we think what better means is they will have a go-kart when they're 3. I mean, in my neighborhood, this stuff I never dreamed of having. These kids all over my yard. 3 years old. Mini bikes. I'm telling you, here's what your kids tell you they want. They want this toy, that thing, the commercial they just, but you know what they won't say, but they really want? They want you. They want you. Can't buy another you. A thing can't give them what a mom and dad can't. They'll say, oh, yeah. You know, when they get teenagers, you know, the famous thing they do, you know, you should do this, sweetheart. But inside they're going, thanks, mom and dad. But on the outside, they can't handle it, so they go, We've all heard that. By the way, so does your spouse. I'll work hard and provide for my spouse. Your spouse will take a little less money if you could just have some dinner together. Here's the third one. You make as much as you want as long as it doesn't harm other people. Proverbs 28:8. He who increases his wealth by exorbitant interest amasses it for another who will be kind to the poor. In other words, charging people interest. By the way, if you're a Christian and another Christian wants to borrow money, you know you should never charge them interest. Either say yes or no. No interest. By the way, I don't care if it's Christian, I'd sign a piece of paper. But you should never charge another Christian interest. Either just say, pay me back, or, by the way, and if you ever let somebody borrow money, I don't care if they say Jesus 17.9 times per minute. You better be prepared to lose it, because I've been stiffed by Christians. Stiff now. I'm not going to tell you that I actually memorized the dollar figures over 25 years ago, but it's true. One person says, the old saying is you climb the ladder of success no matter who you have to step on the rungs up to get there. One person said this philosophy is get all you can all you get, sit on the can and spoil the rest. And people say, this is a dog-eat-dog world. Well, a couple problems with that. Number one, like people aren't dogs. And number two, unless you're in North Korea, you're not eating a dog. They don't taste good. Pretty sure. Well, the North Korea summit, I thought, didn't work in the first service. I should have scrapped it. Okay, one more. And this one's important. As long you can make as much money, as long as it doesn't impact your spiritual life. Now, this is a very misused verse. The prosperity gospel, people teach it, pervert it. But let me say what it says and doesn't say. 3 John 2. You go, well, where's the verse? There's only one chapter, so it's just 3 John 2. It says, John speaking to a Christian friend, he says, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. Now, the myth is that this verse teaches that God wants every Christian wealthy, and if you don't have enough faith, that's why you're not. That's not what it teaches. This is a statement by the Apostle John to an individual. But what he is saying is this. He goes, I hope that physically and I hope that financially you're doing strong, just like your spiritual life is. Because I know how strong your spiritual life is. And that's the point, is that if your spiritual life can track with your financial life, keep making it. No problem. If your growth rate and your spiritual rate, so there's the first. Earn it honestly. Second, save it faithfully. Proverbs 21, by the way, this corrects the issue of accumulation, hoarding it, which I think was the first one. Proverbs 21:20 says this, the wise man saves for the future. The foolish man spends whatever he gets. Average American only saves less than 4% of their money. Total. In Europe, 15%. Japan, almost 25%. Why? In America, we have to have it now. America is not only the land of the free and home of the brave, it's the land of the greed and the home of the crave. You know, Christ talked more about money than heaven and hell together. Why? Because he knows we struggle so much with it. You know, NBC has a building, I think they call it 30 Rock, Rockefeller Tower. You know, they have all that. You know, Rockefeller was a famous politician, very, very wealth magnate in our history. You know what John Rockefeller said you should do with your money? John Rockefeller. He said, save 10%, tithe 10% to your church, and live on 80%. I'm listening to a dude that has that formula and has that kind of money. And the second thing is learn to have contentment. Contentment is the most elusive virtue, one of the most elusive virtues in our country. I heard a guy say this one time: use it up, wear it out, make it do, or live without. Use it up, wear it out, make it do, or live without. I'm telling you, people in my neighborhood, I don't know about yours, they throw away stuff. I'm about tempted to take that. Me and my wife call it dumpster diving. We've done it. And so have you. Question: what's the purpose of savings? Because I'm going to rock your world biblically. The world says the purpose of saving is for security. What about all the people that had all that savings in October 1929? How much security did that provide? That's not the purpose of savings is not security. Pretty soon we're going to be calling it social insecurity, because that's about all we're going to get. The purpose of savings is not security. The purpose of savings is stewardship. Stewardship, managing and giving away. That's the purpose of savings. It removes impulse buying. It allows us to help other people. It gets our money working for us. You can't make your own security. That's why Jesus says you can't serve God and money, because people make a God out of money. Our security is not in our stack of money, our IRA, our 401k, ESL, Canandaigua National, or wherever you bank. Our security must be in Jesus Christ. Otherwise, it's not reliable. I'm just telling you. You don't have to believe me. I believe me, because I believe the Bible. Third, spend it wisely. This corrects the issue of allocation or wasting it. With all that we learn at school and all we learn at home, it's amazing how people don't know how to use money. Proverbs 27:23-24 says, riches can disappear fast, and the king's crown doesn't stay in his family forever, so watch your business interests closely. I know this, it's easier to get into debt than to get out of debt. I know that for a fact. In this part of Rochester, the average household income is a little over $60,000. That shouldn't be a problem. You know what our problem is? Our problem is when our yearning capacity exceeds our earning capacity. So what's the solution to curb your yearning capacity and keep it in line with your earning capacity? Dun, da, 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 it's called a budget. A budget is a spending plan. That's all it is. You know, there's a lot of people that like to tell you where to go. It's a pretty commonplace, too, isn't it? You ever notice that? Why don't you go to HE double hockey sticks? A lot of people like to tell people. If you have the urge to tell something where to go, tell your money where to go. Not there, by the way. Tell your money where to go. That's called spending it wisely and overcoming the allocation waste issue. By the way, one last word. Imagine if you lost your job and you were in austerity mode for 6 months until you got a new job. How would you spend your money? Try to start spending your money that way now, even when you're making it. Live in austerity mode for yourself, and then do the last thing, which I'm going to talk to you about. Give it generously. This corrects the last issue of application or abusing it. This principle is taught over and over in Scripture. This is one example, Proverbs 11:24-25. It is possible to give away and become richer. It's also possible to hold on too tightly and lose everything. That's exactly the opposite of what we think, even me. Yes, the liberal man shall be rich. This is not a political statement. By watering others, he waters himself. Here's the principle. Give and it will be given to you. More promises in the Bible for generous givers than anything else except eternal life. Because here's what we think. Because this is what the world tells us all the time. If you want to get, grab and bring it in. God says if you want to get, give. Completely the opposite. How do I get by giving? I don't know. Here's what I know. I like to hang around with generous people. A lot of my generous friends, they're doing pretty good financially. And I find cheapskates. How many of you love to buy dinner at an expensive restaurant for a cheapskate? See what I mean? That's the principle at work. One person said this, when it comes to tithing or giving God 10% of your money, there are some Christians that have cirrhosis of the giver. Okay. Did you ever hear this one? Can't take it with you. It's true. But you can't send it on ahead. Every time you spend money, you're investing in eternity. That's why Jesus says, store up your treasure in heaven. How do I do that? I'll tell you, you store up your treasure in heaven by using your money for the glory of God and the advancement of the name and fame of Jesus Christ on earth. That's how you send it on ahead. Heard the story of a man, I think is a little apocryphal, a little fictitious, but it makes a point. Story of a man who stood before God. He was a Christian. He's going to heaven. And he goes, all right, welcome to heaven. And he saw this gigantic mansion. And he saw about 7 or 8 little shacks. And God says, there's yours, and he pointed to the shack. The man said, well, how come I got a shack and so many other people are in the mansion? He said, that's all the material you sent up ahead. So you get to decide, that's all. So I just want to ask you, are you using your wealth wisely? Let's all bow our heads. I'm going to let the message speak for itself. And now I just want to speak to those of you who are Christians. I pray that God will speak to you where you need to make some adjustments. If you are not yet a Christian, your wealth is not determined by how much money you have. Your wealth is determined to your relationship to God through Jesus Christ. The Bible says, though Jesus was poor, he died on our behalf to make us rich. And he's not talking about money. He's talking about riches that are way more valuable. The riches of knowing God, the riches of being a child of the King, of being a Christian. How do you do that? You say, Jesus Christ, you're holy. I am sinful. When you died on the cross, when you rose again, you did everything I need. And you stop believing. Please, if you do nothing, if you're not ready to accept Christ, stop believing this lie. I'm a good person and I go to church and that's why I'm going to heaven. Neither of those two things has anything to do with it. Jesus and your faith in him is the only thing that matters. Say, Christ, come into my life and forgive me. And if you do it, say it and mean it by faith alone. Let us know about it. Father, do a great work because of this message in Jesus' name. Amen.
Important message, important challenge. I hope that we are able to really take that in, to really consider these words as words from God and really say, you know, it's good to hear that, but what am I going to do with it? Like, how am I actually going to live this out now? If you just even prayed with Pastor Vince just now to receive Christ for the first time in your life, that's a big deal. We want to celebrate that with you. We want to support you. You're walking into very new territory, and it takes a community really to come alongside you and walk that out. I want to encourage you, check that off on your Connect card that I mentioned earlier. Let us know, and we can follow up with you and help you out with that. This time I'm going to ask the greet team to come forward as we receive the offering. As we do that, we just again express our gratefulness to you. If you call Lakeshore home and you continually give generously, sacrificially to make this happen here at church, we're so grateful for that and what that allows us to do and how God's using our church and the people here to do that. I want to tell you about something really interesting, something that just gets gets me, I think, and a whole bunch of other people just jazzed about here at Lakeshore. It's called Love Week. Last year, how many of you were a part of Love Week last year? Maybe you were a part of that. We want to see a year from now, every hand go up. We want you all to be a part of Love Week. You're going to hear more about that. But basically, we asked the question last year. We asked this question. We said, if Lakeshore just ceased to exist, if we disappeared from 3651 Ladder Road, if we were no longer here, would anybody in the community know? Would they care? We asked that question. We said, man, if we weren't here, would it be anything more than just, not having a playground in the community to bring your kids or a parking spot for the Little League fields on the far fields? I mean, would it be anything more than that? And we said, it should. It should. And so let's make sure that it would matter. And so we said, let's get volunteers out into the community, into our neighborhood, right here in Greece, at the Little League field, other parts of Greece, serving, meeting tangible needs, loving the community where they're at, and just serving as Jesus would. And that's why we did Love Week. And last year we had 16 different projects over the course of 1 week. We had 167 volunteers participate in that. Together, collectively, it was about 1,500 volunteer hours that we were able to put into the community just to say, hey, we know that you're here and we love you, and we want to support you, and we want to come alongside and serve you. We're going to be doing that again this year, and we're really excited about that. Again, we had 16 projects last year. We want to see 20. We want to see that even pushing into the 30s this year if possible. But in order to do that, we need people from Lakeshore to step up and lead a project, to say, hey, I've got this passion for this area, or I see a need in the community right over here, and I could lead that. If I had 15 volunteers in 2 hours, we could do something here. And so that kind of thing, we need people from Lakeshore to step up to lead a project with that as we get ready for it. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. We're going to dismiss in just a minute. I'm going to pray, and you're free to go if you need to, but I want to encourage everyone to stay for just a few minutes. We're going to have a few people share more about Love Week. What does it actually mean to lead a project for Love Week with that? So I want to encourage you to stick around for a few minutes, and we'll give you more info on that, make it really easy and simple for you, okay? All right, let me pray for you, and then we'll be dismissed. Lord, again, we thank you so much for who you are, for loving us the way you do, for being so patient with us, Lord, as we hold so tight sometimes to the resources we've been given. We think that that's our security. Lord, forgive us of that. We praise you for your patience, your kindness to us. I pray, God, that we would be faithful, that we wouldn't just hear what we heard today, but that we would do it, we would follow. And we ask in Jesus' name, amen. So if you're able to stick around, please do so. We love you. We'll see you next time.